Ralph, you should maybe, because you represent the earliest iterations on the panel. You wrote Daredevil as well, correct?
No, Daredevil's a character I've never written.
Oh, excuse me. All right. Well, tell me about that. Well, I am interested because were you editing Daredevil when, was it Roger Mackenzie was writing it and Frank was drawing it?
Yeah, I was under Denny O'Neil at the time. And then after that, Frank, of course, took over. So I was there for that entire first run with Frank.
Wow.
And then afterwards, I was given Daredevil to edit. I had Denny O'Neil on for a while. And then when Denny decided to leave, people were not sure who was going to take over. So secretly, I called Frank, and I knew that he had more Daredevil stories in him. And when I contacted him, David Mazzucchelli was doing the book, was penciling the book, and he was doing a fantastic job. And Frank said, give me a couple of minutes and I'll pick up the story. So he called me back 5 minutes later and he said, how about this Born Again thing I've got? So we did Born Again, he worked with David Mazzucchelli, and after that, Frank went off to do Batman Year One, which he said he couldn't have done if he hadn't been able to come on and do Born Again. And then I got John Romita Jr. and Ann Ascending on for a good long run. And then Dan Chichester came on after that. That's kind of an underrated run, but he did some great stuff in that. So I was on DD for almost 10 years.
Wow, man. I'm going to get into the nitty gritty of some of those eras and stuff, because I really am curious. But I wanted to keep it listed for the opening, give everyone an opening statement of their runs and everything. So then I guess chronologically, David Mack would be next. David, this was really early in Marvel, kind of refiguring itself out. You were part of that wave with Mark Miller and Brian Bendis, and then you guys really coming in. And I know we were all knocked out when we first saw your art, but Joe saw it even earlier, really enjoying Kabuki and things you were doing. Tell me about getting the Daredevil given.
Yeah, that's a good point. It was Joe Quesada. I had met him at a convention in 1995, Heroes Con, and I gave him my Kabuki collection. And he called me up and said he really liked my writing in it and he'd like to work together someday. And there were a couple ideas that he had that didn't pan out with his own creator-owned company called Event. And then cut to, I think, 1997, he called and told me that he and Jimmy Palmiotti were going to be running 4 titles at Marvel called Marvel Knights, with Kevin Smith starting as writer on Daredevil and asked me to take over as a writer after Kevin Smith. So it was, it was a real challenge for me because I had written for other artists before, but I'd never written a character I had not created, right? So I got that job because of Kabuki, which was all creator-owned, and I was very comfortable writing something that you've created yourself. So it was kind of a twofold challenge for me because you want to be respectful to the rich history and mythology that that character has and the creators have brought before. So you've got to fit into that and make that work. But you also have to add some kind of new vocabulary as well, right? Otherwise, no point in doing it. So that was a really interesting challenge for me. It was a really formative time for me, and it was just a great opportunity, to kind of continue where I read Daredevil as a kid. I started with the Frank Miller, Klaus Janson era that Ralph was talking about, and I guess that was, you came a little after that, right? The Janson era.
Yeah, I was Denny's assistant on that. So I was there with Frank really from the beginning, before he was even writing it.
Oh, right on. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my introduction to Daredevil. So for me, I think a lot of people, Daredevil there's many incarnations of Daredevil, dimensions to him, but for a lot of people, it's the Daredevil they first are introduced to that has a lasting mark on them. So I was kind of continuing where my childhood version of me left off, reading it, and that was an incredible experience to do, to write a character that you read as a kid.
That's great, and I can tell you, obviously, you can see your art, and it was, again, such a departure from traditional comic book art that it really was exciting. And that same way that Sienkiewicz, when he did his Love and Glory, am I right, Ralph? Was that the one with the graphic?
Oh, yeah, I said one thing. One thing
Please.
I'm very pleased about during my long run on Daredevil was that I was able to pair Frank Miller with 3 artists that he really was able to do incredible work with. Of course, the first was David Mazzucchelli, again, who we went off to DC with and did the Batman Year One.
Batman Year One.
And then John Romita Jr., who they went off together and did the Daredevil Man Without Fear, that series, which originally was supposed to be a screenplay that Frank brought to us. And he decided that it just wasn't working as a screenplay or he couldn't sell it, so he brought it to us. And the third artist was Bill Sienkiewicz. So it's great to pair him with all 3 of those guys because together they did some incredible work.
No question.
Hey, stop the